much rain or snow may fall, I'm gonna drive on. I'm gonna drive on. Me, V. Lynn Whitfield, I'm gonna drive on. And you know why? Because the party's not over till God says so. Good afternoon. I want to thank your president, former Commissioner Grashaw, and our Vice Mayor, Julian, for having me here this afternoon to just speak with you for just a few minutes. You know, the room is not quite set up for what I'd like to do at this point, but what I want you to do is, if you're old enough to remember, and I think everybody in this room probably is, there was a nursery rhyme that they used to say years ago. Ring around the roses, pocket full of posies, ashes to ashes, we all fall down. Now, when I looked up the history of that, it really was a very morbid nursery rhyme. It was dealing with a very morbid subject. But I liked it because of that last sentence, we all fall down. And I can recall my sisters and brothers and friends, we would all join hands in a big circle, and we'd go around that circle saying that nursery rhyme, and at the end, we'd all fall on the ground, and we'd laugh and laugh, and then we'd get up and do it again. And you know, it's very interesting. I'm glad that your president said what he did when he read my bio, when he mentioned about losing my first legal job, because he says, oh, that's not a good thing to always mention. And that's something that we don't do in our society. We don't like to talk about our failures. We don't want other people to know that we have fallen at anything that we've done in life. But you know, none of us came into this world as just successful beings. We all came out of our mother's wombs not knowing how to walk, not knowing how to talk, not knowing how to feed ourselves, tie shoes, or anything of that nature. And there were times when we tried it, we'd fall. Think about a baby. When you see a baby, a newborn baby or a few months old, crawling and trying to learn how to walk for the very first time. You see them, they go and they grab hold to something, and they're able to pull themselves up finally. And when they take that first step or two, they fall down. And we don't say, oh no, don't try that again. Don't try to get up, because you're going to fall again. No, instead we encourage them. Get up. Try it again. You can do it. But we don't do that as we grow older. And that's why I believe that fear of failure and shame of failure is a learned behavior. And it's because of what others may say to us that we fear failure, or that we're ashamed that we've had a failure in our lives. But as I said, we've all failed at something. I mean, is there anybody sitting around this table that hasn't experienced some kind of failure? You know, if there is, would you raise your hand? Well, okay, I see I'm in the right room then, okay? So we've all failed. It could be in marriage, it could be in a business, it could be in just relationship with your children. It could be as simple as attempting to lose weight and not being successful. But we've all experienced some kind of failure. The problem is, and the question is not if we're going to fail, the question is when we fail, what are we going to do about it? Are we going to allow that to put us on the side of the road? And are we going to say, I can't try again because I'm afraid I'm going to fail again? You know, Thomas Edison, they said, tried 1,000 times before he was successful with electricity. Can you imagine what his friends must have been saying to him? Number 500. Boy, are you crazy? Why you keep trying that? You see you just a failure. And think about it. When we see people down on their luck, may have failed at something, the homeless, we think to ourselves, we may not want to admit it, but we're thinking, what did they do? Why are they such a failure? When we see or hear somebody's marrying for the third time, or a woman that never married, well, why she can't get a man? What's wrong with her? We always look at failure as negative. But I'm here to tell you, failure is not a negative thing, because we learn from our failures. You cannot succeed without having failed at something before. Now, I know because I've experienced many failures in my life. But I wore a mask for many years. I didn't want anybody to know because I was afraid if they knew that I was failing at things, they might not want me to be their lawyer. You know, others fear that they may not want them to be their accountant or handle their money if they know they've had failures in their life. They may not want them to teach their children. But I wore my mask. And I want to tell you about that first time I lost my first legal job. See, I went to law school on a scholarship, and the purpose for me going to law school was so that I could learn to be a criminal defense lawyer. So I thought, bright idea, let me go get a job with the prosecutor's office, learn how to put a case together, then I know how to take it apart. I know what I needed to do to defend my clients. And I was very fortunate because Janet Reno hired me while I was still in law school. So my last year of law school, I would go to class in the morning, and then I'd quickly leave and go down to the Justice Building where I would then prepare cases. I had my own division, in fact, and for the non-lawyers, which I know most of you are, that's one judge sits over a courtroom. They call that a division. So I worked in the division of Cutler Ridge and Homestead. So all the cases that came in the Cutler Ridge and came in the Homestead courtrooms, I tried. And then I'd go down to town on Fridays and try the cases. So I really got into it, and I was really good at it. And in fact, I was so good at it that when I passed the bar, I was immediately moved to handling felony cases, and I was on the road to become a division chief, where I would have attorneys working under me. And I was really getting into it. In fact, I was like, well, wait a minute, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I shouldn't be a defense attorney. Maybe I really should be a career prosecutor. And they saw enough promise in me, they sent me to the career prosecutors course in Houston, the summer of '81. Well, 2 weeks after returning from the career prosecutors course, I went to work happy, go lucky, on top of the world. I came home despondent, knowing I had no job, and not knowing if I was going to be charged with a crime. Now, I go into more detail about that in chapter 5 of my book, The Party's Not Over Until God Says So. But the important thing for today for you to know is because of that, I became very ashamed. 2 weeks after I left that job, was out of a job, I was the headlines of the Miami Herald local section. For taped ex-prosecutor, you read it right, for taped ex-prosecutor, the party's over. The shame of that, I didn't let my family know what happened. My friends that didn't live in the area, I never told them what happened. When I went back home to Cleveland, doing a suspension from the Florida bar, I let everybody think I just came home because I was tired of working. I had been working since the age of 14, and I needed a break. I didn't want them to know the shame I was carrying. But I wore that mask, and I continued to wear that mask for many years, even after I started practicing law again, even as I got jobs with other agencies, I continued to wear that mask. I didn't want anyone to know what had occurred. In fact, when I applied for a judge, because we were trying to get a black on the bench and we were unsuccessful in Palm Beach County, so we decided every black that was eligible to apply should apply. The fear and the nerves that came up in me as I sat in that interview room, knowing that I had to disclose that on the application and that people were going to question me about that incident. But I made it through. I made it through that incident. But I continued to wear the mask to everybody else until August of 2005. I was applying for the job of city attorney for North Miami, and I was sitting in my church, minding my business, just praising and having a good time, and I heard a voice, just as audible as I'm talking to you right now. And that voice said, I can't do for you what I want to if you won't tell them what I've already done. And chills just came over my body. So I'm like, well, who's talking to me? Who is that? Who knows what's going on in my life? Because, see, I was wearing that mask. I mean, I was driving every day in a beautiful Mercedes, and people thought I had it going on. They were like, ooh, look at her. She dresses well. She got it going on. They didn't know that one day I had gone to the bank to make a withdrawal, and it said no money. And I had gone inside and said, because there must be a mistake. I mean, I'm good. I can be $1 over. I can be overdrawn, but zero in the bank. I was like, no, there's got to be a problem going on here. And the woman said, no, there's no problem. You're not that good, but IRS is. And they have come in and taken all your money. And I was just like, what? I mean, do you know I just mailed out checks? I mean, what's going to happen? All those checks going to bounce. Then y'all going to charge me $35 for overdraft fee. What am I supposed to do? But people didn't know that because of the mask I wore. Because I looked like I was doing fine. But that morning, when I heard that voice, I knew it was time to take off that mask. And I walked to the front of that church. And I looked at my pastor, and he handed me the mic. I'm like, you don't know what I'm going to say. He said, it doesn't matter. I trust you. And I sat there, and I told packed church of the things that I had been hiding behind that mask. I told them of my financial failures. I told them the tax liens. I told them that my house had almost been foreclosed on. But thank God I had some friends to go to help me. I told them everything. I revealed it all. Like I said, I took off the mask, and it was so liberating. You don't know how good it can feel just letting people know, look, I'm not perfect. You know, I've made a mistake, but I'm doing good. I'm getting past it. So I don't know, maybe some of you have a mask that you're hiding behind. Something that you've been ashamed of, or a fear that you have because of a past failure, and you don't want other people to know about. But I'm here to tell you, you can conquer that shame of failure. You can conquer that